Janeremover is my favorite artist of all time, so today I'm going to be ranking every single one of her projects across all of her aliases from worst to best. But before we begin, there are a few rules. Rule number 1, I will not be including projects that are lost, incomplete, or really hard to find. It just doesn't make sense putting them up against her full bodies of work. Rule number 2, I won't be including Jameson Bleach Waters because it's so drastically different from all her other work, and wait, is there even a full Jameson Bleach Waters project? Anyways. Similarly with rule number 3, I will not be including her old beat tapes because they are just not comparable to her other work. And rule number 4, this is my personal opinion and it will be different from yours, so don't get mad at me for that. Also, shout out to one of my favorite YouTubers right now, Bodyguard44 for this video format. Go check out his videos after this, they're really cool. Okay, and now with all that out of the way, let's get into it. My 13th favorite, aka my least favorite Janeremover project is... No Words, Just a Picture of Me is Jane's first real project you can still find online today, although she has deleted it off her main pages. However, I'm still including it in this video because it's a finished project and it's very easy to find online. Anyways, this CP was originally released under the Hi Zoe alias in July of 2020, and it might be the most digicore sounding digicore project I've ever heard with its glitchy trap production and funny ass lyrics. And I will say, even though this is her worst project, it's still a really fun listen and all the songs are pretty catchy. Since the CP is only 4 songs long, I'll just rank them all real quick. In my opinion, there's a pretty clear worst song here, and that is Digicore. I wouldn't say this is a bad song, but it can get pretty repetitive and annoying quickly, especially during the vocal switch at midway through. It's pretty funny though. 5 out of 10. Third place goes to the opening track Yeah, which is definitely a step up from Digicore, but still isn't anything that crazy. It's just a pretty basic, goofy, but catchy Digicore song. 7.5 out of 10. Second place goes to No, which is basically just Yeah, but with better production, better melodies, and a fire Dollywood 1 feature. 8.5 out of 10. And the best song on the CP is definitely Total Drama. This is one of my favorite Digicore songs of all time. The beat is amazing, the lyrics are very goofy but so quotable, the melodies are great, and the features make this song feel like a moment. 10 out of 10. So overall, this EP is really short and definitely a product of its time, but it's always a really fun listen. 7.5 out of 10. My 12th favorite Janeremover project is... Indie Rock is an 18-track rage mixtape that was briefly released on a SoundCloud alt for around 2 hours before being taken down on August 18th, 2025. I remember I was at a summer camp when this dropped, and as soon as I found out, I immediately popped in my earbuds and blocked out everything around me for the 50-minute runtime. Anyways, Indie Rock is a great rage mixtape and could be one of the best rage projects of all time if it wasn't for the massive amounts of bloat it has. If Jane had chopped off like 5 to 8 songs from this track list, it would be nearly perfect, but unfortunately she didn't, and that means we got stuck with songs like my least favorite off the album, and probably my least favorite Jane song of all time, Go On and Cry. As much as I want this song to work, it just doesn't. On this track, Jane is doing some okay rapping with heavy autotune over a piano sample for some reason, and it just does not work at all. However, it's not completely unlistenable, so I'll give it a 3 out of 10. Now, it was really hard for me to choose my favorite song off this project with there being so many bangers, but I have to go with Kill Your Producer. Everything about this song is incredible. The beat goes fucking crazy, and she flows beautifully over it. 10 out of 10. So overall, Indie Rock is nowhere near a bad mixtape. In fact, I would say it's pretty great, especially for pretty much a throwaway tape. I just really hope that she cuts off some bloat for Indie Rock too. 7.7 out of 10. My 11th favorite Janeremover project is... Digicore 3 is, well, the third installment in the Digicore series on Jane's SoundCloud alt Leroy, and in my opinion, it is the worst project to come out of this alias. This project was released on May 22nd, 2022, and while it's still full of bangers, it's just not as memorable or consistent as the rest of the Leroy albums. Many songs on here, while not bad or even mid, just don't stick out very much. And my least favorite song on this album is actually one that does stick out, just not for the best reasons. Digicore Song Tutorial. Now let me get out of the way, I understand the concept and satire of this song, and I actually kind of enjoy that part of it. It's just, well, sonically it doesn't sound great. It's kind of just Jane mumbling over a decent grunge sample. 5 out of 10. And on pretty much the complete opposite of the spectrum, my favorite song off this album is I Hate When Boys Lie. This song has everything you could want in a Digicore song. A catchy, quirky pop sample, crazy ass electronic production, and so many sound effects. 10 out of 10, one of the best Leroy songs ever. So overall, there's nothing really wrong with this album, it just kinda lacks a lot of the personality and charm that other Leroy albums had. It's still a pretty great album though, 7.8 out of 10. My 10th favorite Janeremover project is... Digicore was the first Leroy album ever released, coming out on May 14th, 2021, and it is amazing. This album birthed the now iconic Digicore genre and is a certified 2020s classic for chronically online people. The first half of this album is some of the best electronic music of the decade, but that's where my main problem with this album comes from. The second half of the track list, while still great, is just not as good as the first half, having a similar lack of personality to Digicore 3, just to a lesser degree. A song that perfectly encapsulates this feeling is my least favorite song off the album, 2 On. This song isn't bad at all, it's just kind of another Digicore song, you know? Nothing too special about it. 7.5 out of 10. However, like I mentioned, this album has some of the best electronic songs of the decade, and one of those songs is Ricky Bobby. This song is the Digicore song. It has all the major characteristics, the samples, the chaotic song structure and production, etc. If I had to explain this genre to someone with only one song, it would be this one. It's so iconic. 10 out of 10. So overall, this is an album that has some incredible highlights, but also a few boring moments. Still a classic though. 8.4 out of 10. My 10th favorite chain remover project is... Before I talk about this project, I just want to quickly mention that I'm talking about the unabridged version of the CP, which includes these songs that Jane has now taken off streaming. Anyways, Teen Week was Jane's breakout EP into the digicore scene, releasing on February 6, 2021, and it is commonly regarded as one of the best and most iconic projects to come out of this era, and I would agree with this sentiment. This project had everything: bangers, sad shit, a combination of the bangers and sad shit, and that's really it, but it's amazing. Also, the tracklist is very concise and consistent, which is something that you didn't really see that much in that era of hyperpop. However, there is one song that I've always seen as pretty overrated and just not nearly as good as the rest of the project, and that is Beast Friend. I know I'm gonna get crucified by the OG fans for this take, but just hear me out, okay? This song kinda just takes the core sound of this album with the more emo influenced digicore and just does it in a more forgettable and frankly worse way than the other tracks do. However, it's still a banger. 8 out of 10. Now, like I mentioned earlier, this EP has so many incredible songs, so shout out to these tracks specifically, but the best has to be Woodside Garden, 16 December 2012. Real quick, shout out to the demo of this song. Please check it out if you haven't yet. This shit is genuinely soulful. But anyways, this song has so many different unique sections throughout, despite being only around 2.5 minutes long. It has a cool intro, a stripped backdrop, a build-up, and then a crazy drop at the end with amazing break drums. In my opinion, this is probably the best pure digicore song ever made. So of course, it is a 10 out of 10. Overall, this is probably the best project to come out of the COVID hyperpop era, still being incredible despite a few low points throughout. 8.7 out of 10. My 9th favorite chain remover project is... Grave Robbing is the second most recent Leroy album to date, and despite it being similar sonically to the other projects from this alias, it is a whole different experience. This album feels more polished and complete than the Digicore series, with much softer mixing, more house influence, and more precise concepts on each track. The songs are also much longer, which gives them much more time to develop and really take you on a journey. I also really enjoy the way the songs transition into each other, even though SoundCloud fucks that up a bit. The tracklist is also very consistent, but it leaves me feeling a bit conflicted at times, due to most songs on here sounding pretty similar to each other. Like, I don't think I can pick a favorite or least favorite song off the project. I also feel like she didn't really need to add the house influence she did to the album, because even though it still works and sounds pretty good, I much prefer the chaotic EDM and dubstep sounds. But despite all this, it is again a very consistent album that feels like a journey, so even though I don't think it's as crazy as others are, it's still one of Jane's overall best album experiences. 8.8 out of 10. My 8th favorite chain remover project is... The Arizona EP was the first full project to come out of the venturing alias after many months of SoundCloud exclusive singles, releasing on May 19th, 2023. This EP is only 8 minutes long, but it has one of Jane's best rock soundscapes, being this dreamy slack rock sound, and it also has some of my all-time favorite songs from her. And like I did with No Words Just a Picture of Me, I'm going to be ranking all the songs off this EP because it's only 4 songs long. In last place, I have Cream Soda. This song is pretty good, but it almost feels like a demo, with its very minimalistic sound and mixing combined with a very short runtime and abrupt end. 7.5 out of 10. In third place, I have I Love My Friends. This song is very comforting and I love the vocal melody. I switched things up a little bit more throughout the runtime. 9 out of 10. In second place, I have Stand Up Donor. This song might be my favorite song to play during late night car drives. It's so pretty and dreamy on all fronts, the vocals, guitars, etc. 10 out of 10. And my favorite song off Arizona EP, and maybe my favorite chain remover song of all time, is Vulture City. This song is just incredible. The writing is some of Jane's best, her vocals are so emotional and passionate, and that main riff is just 10 out of 10, genuinely one of my favorite songs ever. So overall, I think that if this EP was turned into a full project and was cleaned up a bit, it could very well be Jane's best project of all time. But unfortunately, it was the last time Jane really used this late night slack rock sound, so we'll never really know how far she could have gone with it. 9 out of 10, probably my favorite project to listen to at night. My 7th favorite Jane Remover project is digicore 2 is definitely my favorite album from the digicore series, having the most consistent tracklist by far with genuinely no skips. It's also just that classic digicore sound with some of my favorite sample flips and drops in the genre's entirety. For example, with my favorite song off this album, and probably my favorite Leroy song of all time, During Pride Month. Amazing vocal sample choice, production that switches up throughout into all different types of insane drums that all lead back to this classic 10 out of 10, probably the best song to ever come from the digicore genre. Now, it's so hard for me to choose my least favorite song for the soundtrack because it's just so consistent, so for one of the few times in this video, there's no worst song in the project, it's just also peak. Insane production, samples, consistency, and even sequencing, 9 out of 10. A very strong contender for the best digicore album of all time. My 6th favorite Jane Remover project is Heart is an EP that has a very interesting history. Originally, Jane was going to release an 18-song pop trap album known as the Chicago Tape, or known by fans as the Pop Album, in 2024, and she released 4 singles for it, but then she just decided to not drop the entire finished album just because she didn't feel like it. But after fans begged for almost 2 years, she released 2 more songs from the Pop Album and packaged them in an EP with the other songs from that era, and let me just say, if this album fully released, it would have been something else, man. But regardless, I'm still happy with what we got, a nice group of fun yet emotional pop songs that incorporate other genres like trap, rock, and more into it as well. And while I love every song from this EP, these 3 songs are some of her all-time best, but the best out of them has to be Dream Sequence. This song's a strong contender for the best Jane Remover song of all time, with a beautiful electro pop rock sound and some of Jane's best lyrics and vocals ever. 10 out of 10, one of my favorite songs of all time. And for my least favorite song, it was pretty hard to pick, but I think I need to go with Magic I Want You. And I know that I'm gonna get flamed for this take, but just hear me out. This song is still amazing, there's just nothing about it that really stands out like the other songs of this project. Still incredible though, 9 out of 10. So overall, I think that if Jane had fully released the Pop Album, it would be a contender for her best project of all time. And even though we never got that, I'm still very happy with this fun, concise little EP. 9.5 out of 10. Simply beautiful. Now real quick before we get on to the top 5, if you've been enjoying this video so far and want to see me talk about more artists like Jane, then please consider subscribing, I really appreciate it. I also made a video all about Jane's friend Underscores and her influence on modern day music, so go check that out after this if you want to. Anyways, my 5th favorite Jane Remover project is We Just Make Music, Baby. Status Update Music is the most recent Leroy album and the most recent Jane project, releasing on May 13th, 2026, and I think it is the best Leroy album and maybe the best digicore album of all time. This album takes the best part of the Leroy albums and fixes all the issues with them. It has the chaotic energy of digicore 1, the personality of digicore 3, and the cohesiveness and consistency of Grave Robbing. Jane also has many vocal performances on this project, which is very uncommon for Leroy, making it almost feel like a Jane x Leroy collab album. Also, despite initially being released as a run of singles over the course of a year, I still think it's the best full album experience to come out of Leroy. I think it might actually be because of that. It feels like a recap of Jane's life this past year through incredible sample selection that feels much more intentional than her other projects. I also don't think I can pick my least favorite song off this album, it's just so consistent. But for my favorite song on this album, it comes down to 2. The first one is #BoyLetMeKnow. This song is a really cool structure, starting off with this distorted hardstyle sound that slowly turns into a brighter, almost inspiring sound, and it's beautiful. 10 out of 10. And my other choice is I Belong to Nobody, But Tonight I'm Yours. This song just simply goes hard as fuck. The vocal samples over all the different drum patterns that appear across this track are just so cool and I love it. 10 out of 10. So overall, Status Update Music feels like the final frontier of digicore, with it being the most conceptual and thought out project that I've ever heard from the genre. But despite all that, it still has the charm that appeared in the digicore series many years ago. And because of all this, I think I have to make this album the first 10 out of 10 in this video. Digicore at its best. My 4th favorite Jane Remover project is Revenge Seekers is Jane Remover's 3rd studio album that was surprise released on April 4th, 2025, and it is fucking insane. This album had Jane return to her old digicore sound, but evolved it into something much more interesting, incorporating elements of rage, EDM, and other genres into it, which created this chaotic track list full of bangers. This album is admittedly also how I got into Jane. I had heard Home Switcher a few years ago, but didn't really check anything else from her until 2025, where I decided to check out some of the singles from this album, and I was instantly hooked. Anyways, one night I was staying over at my grandma's house and decided to see what new music dropped, and boom, Revenge Seekers, surprise drop out of nowhere. And it was one of the best first listens I've ever had to any project. It was so fun getting turned in my grandma's guest room. But anyways, while I love this album, it's pretty easy to pick my least favorite off it, Dark Knight Castle. This song is still pretty great. I actually really enjoy the writing on it. My main issue with it is that it kind of just feels like she took a ghost holding song and tried to turn it into a Revenge Seeker track. Still really good though, 9 out of 10. And my favorite song off this album is so hard to choose, but it's probably Star People. This song is Jane's best ever rapping over an insane jerk beat that sounds like nothing I've ever heard before. It also switches up midway through into a sad acoustic section that sounds like a ghost holding song turned Revenge Seekers, just like Dark Knight Castle. But in this case, I feel like it works much better. I also really like the writing on this track. 10 out of 10, one of her best songs ever. So yeah, Revenge Seekers is, in my opinion, one of the most unique and creative Rage albums of all time, with its chaotic yet structured sound that is just unreal, man. I gotta give it a perfect 10 out of 10. My third favorite Jane Remover project is... Ghost Holding is the debut album released under the Venturing alias, and it was dropped on Valentine's Day 2025, and oh my god, it is beautiful. It takes the sound from Arizona EP and adds on some more grit, distortion, and noise rock influences, which creates a sound that is very emotional, but is also something I can headbang to. It also does something that many other Jane projects do, which is where it has a cohesive track list, but all the songs can still stand out and do something different. This makes it very difficult to choose a favorite song off the album, because you could go with anything really, especially in the second half, but my favorite song is probably Dead Forever. This song follows a much more basic structure than most of the songs of this project, but it works really well with the noisy, aggressive sound that I could cry to or mosh to. It's also one of her best vocal and lyrical performances ever. 10 out of 10. Immaculate. And for my least favorite song, I would probably go with No Sleep. Still an incredible song, it's just kind of basic, and I feel like she could have done a bit better with the drums. 9 out of 10. So overall, this album brings a feeling that no other album can really do for me. It goes crazy, it feels so personal, it's just perfect. 10 out of 10. My second favorite Jane Remover project is... Since it's designated as Jane Remover's sophomore studio album that was released on October 20th, 2023, and it is one of the greatest shoegaze albums of all time. Album of the year motherfuckers are gonna shit their pants when I say that, but it's true. Anyways, like I said, this is a full-on shoegaze album, and it was the first real genre change of many in Jane's career. But surprisingly, she was able to transition from a digicore artist to a shoegaze one really well, and I think it's simply because this album is just that damn good. One thing I've spoken about a lot in this video is how consistent the tracklists are on many Jane albums, but this is her most consistent album ever, with the tracklist being sequenced incredibly, every song giving a similar feeling but being unique in their own right, and just everything being perfect. Because of this, my favorite song off this album changes pretty much every day, but I think overall it's probably Always Have, Always Will. This might be the most underrated Jane Remover song of all time. It's the second least streamed song off since it's designated, and I've never seen anyone in the community talk about it, even though it is a masterpiece. The metaphorical writing, the ambient build up into a pretty wall of noise at the end, it's also unique and beautiful. 10 out of 10. Now for the worst song, I'm going with the only pick I can think of, which is Contingency Song. This track is still perfect, I just don't really listen to it outside the context of this album, which is the only reason why I have it below everything else. It's still perfect, 10 out of 10. So overall, since it's designated, is a minimum top 3 shoegaze album of the decade and one of the best shoegaze albums of all time because of its unique rating, emotional vocals, and beautiful noisy soundscapes. 10 out of 10. And now finally, my all-time favorite Jane Remover project is... Frailty was Jane's debut album, released on November 12, 2021, and it might be my favorite album of all time. Frailty is a tribute to childhood and the fear of growing up, but these themes are reflected so well through the music. This album has this really nice, glitchy electro pop rock sound that feels very nostalgic, especially combined with the various video game samples and interpolations throughout. The main criticisms I've seen about this album is that the vocals are too monotone and don't feel very emotional, and while yes, they are pretty monotone throughout, I think they actually work really well with the themes and just sound good in general. It almost feels like Jane cares a lot about what she's talking about, but tries to be, for lack of a better term, nonchalant about it. She's scared of adulthood, but is also scared to talk about it. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but anyways, for my least favorite song on this album, it was really hard to pick because this is just such an incredible body of work, but it is probably Buzzcut Daisy. I still really like this song, it just kind of feels like an interlude, but the way it doesn't really progress that much. It's still a 10 out of 10 though. Now the even harder thing to choose was the best song on this album, because again, it's such an incredible track list, you could say any song on it is your favorite, and that would be valid. But for me, I think I gotta go with Kodak Moment. This song encapsulates everything I love about this album. The nostalgic glitchy poppy sound, the angsty yet beautiful lyricism, and the insane electronic breakdowns. 10 out of 10, one of my favorite songs of all time. So obviously, I think that this is a perfect 10 out of 10 album. It is just so unique and will always have a special place in my heart, and be my favorite Jane Remover project of all time. So yeah, that is my full ranking of every Jane Remover project. Thank you so much for watching until the end. It really means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed, please consider subscribing. I mostly make little documentaries about artists I like, including friends of Jane, like Underscores, so if you're into stuff like that, I'd really appreciate you checking it out. Also, comment your ranking of all these projects below. I'm really curious to see what you guys think of her discography. Alright, that's it guys, bye!